as Donald Trump continues to call for the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, suggesting that it be made into the Riviera of the Middle East. Hundreds of thousands of Gazans push forward into the north, back to their homes.
I wanna start a revolution.
All right, guys, hello and welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. Today we're going to have a relatively easy episode, a relatively quicker episode. We have more videos for you today rather than reading, and just a little bit of political analysis and discussion. Today we're going to be talking about Donald Trump suggesting that we move forward with the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. His talk about turning it into the Riviera of the Middle East, mirroring Jared Kushner's comments almost a year prior, suggesting that there's beautiful beachfront property here. What a shame that it's controlled by brown people. We could turn it into the Atlantic City, knowing Trump. The Atlantic City of the Middle East would be better, I think, than the Riviera. We're going to be talking about all this. We're going to be talking about Palestinians, just the indomitable spirit of Palestinians as they move forward back into the north, back into their home, where their homes were, right? We're also going to be talking about a curious gift from Netanyahu recently, his golden pager. Many of you may have seen that already. You may have seen a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, but we're trying to put it all into one place and have a brief discussion about settler-colonialism, right? So without further ado, guys, we'll go ahead and jump into this first video.
President, will you continue?
This is a press conference with Donald Trump, him talking about his comments regarding ethnic cleansing of Gaza, pushing Palestinians out of Gaza. So let's go ahead and jump right in here, guys.
Continue to press for this idea that Jordan and Egypt can take Palestinians from Gaza.
Yeah, I would like to see Jordan. I'd like to see Egypt take some look. The Gaza thing has not worked. It's never worked. And I feel very differently about Gaza than a lot of people. I think they should get a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land, and we get some people to put up the money to build it and make it nice. And
so a couple of things here, guys. We're going to kind of chop it into pieces so I can provide a little bit of political context and analysis here. This should sound familiar to you because this is a slightly more assertive, forceful pitching of the same idea that Biden was pushing and that Tony Blinken was flying all around the Middle East for, pushing them into Egypt, pushing them to the Sinai, pushing them into Jordan, taking them overseas. Somebody take these Palestinians so we can get them out of here. Right. Same thing. Now, we saw that Biden and his Secretary of State Blinken was completely unsuccessful in this. Egypt, Jordan, these countries were unwilling and unable to take in these refugees, right, to permit the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. Now, this had nothing to do with honor among Arabs, Arab nationalism, protecting Gazans. No, they don't want to deal with the political consequences of this amount of refugees, right? They were talking about moving about 1 million Palestinians into the Sinai. Just because you do that doesn't mean that organizations like the Palestinian Liberation Front or Hamas suddenly disappear. It just means now they might be operating under our sovereign territory, which suddenly makes it our problem. So we saw Biden was unsuccessful in this. I'm leaning towards the idea that Donald Trump will also probably be unsuccessful in this. But part of me thinks there's a chance he may be able to get away with it because for whatever reason, we are seeing Trump being willing to play hardball. And we saw him obviously recently putting tariffs on Mexico and Canada. This is his whole thing, trade war, tariffs, right? Rather than sanctions as under the Biden regime. But we know that under Biden, the administration, the Biden regime was, pushing money in exchange for housing Palestinian refugees. I think under Trump, we're going to see the stick instead of the carrot. I think we're going to see Donald Trump threaten insane tariffs, and possibly even in case of Sisi, General Sisi in Egypt, threatening behind closed doors, you're going to take him or we'll find someone else to do your job who will. I expect we could see something similar in Jordan. I don't know. I'm really kind of split 50-50 down the line here on this. I don't think Egypt will take these Palestinians for any amount of money because whatever money they get, they're going to be paying forward in building the infrastructure and dealing with the political fallout of the situation. And not only that aspect of it, of taking care of the Palestinians, perhaps having to deal with Palestinian liberation fighters themselves, we're looking at a population that these governments like General Sisi in Egypt, the King of Jordan, and these other countries, people do not like their governments in these countries. They're autocratic, they're dictatorships, they're family dictatorship monarchies. People do not like, they are occupied. These monarchs and generals are colonial occupation forces with the native guys, right? People do not like their governments, and the Arab working class, is united in its call for Palestinian liberation, right? So you're looking at a situation where not only will they have to deal with the immediate logistics and national security issue of housing that many millions of refugees, but also you're looking at severe unrest amongst the population. So I don't think we're going to see this happen, but we don't know. Trump is a wild card. We know Trump is willing to play hardball. So with a combination of factors, he may be able to, unfortunately, pull off the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, especially as we know Jared Kushner has recently invested immensely in Israeli Real Estate Development Corporation. And if Trump's family and his own personal interests are vested in this project, there are no lengths to which he might not go to ensure that he builds that Atlantic city in the Middle East, right? The other thing I want to point out here is, he's talks here, and he will be talking more about making an area outside of Palestine nice and habitable for Palestinians. That is not the case anywhere in the world. Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt has over the decades since 1948, 1947, Foundation of Israel, taken millions of Palestinian, well, maybe not, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Palestinian refugees. Palestinian refugees do not live well in these countries. They're often hoarded into ghettos. They are, the subject of ethnic dispute oftentimes. Poor refugee camps, ghettos, like I said. We will see more of that at best if they are given citizenship in some of these surrounding countries. At worst, we see them just transition into another version of an open-air concentration camp, this time administered by Jordan or Egypt instead of, instead of actually Palestinians, right? And this is because while the Arab people, as a by and large, support the Palestinian cause, the governments are reactionary and do not, right? So let's go ahead and jump back into this here, guys.
Make it habitable and enjoyable and
Somewhere else.
make it a
They
home.
don't want to leave, though. Palestinians say they don't want to leave.
I don't know how they could want to stay. It's a demolition site. It's a pure demolition site. If we could find the right piece of land or numerous pieces of land and build them some really nice places with plenty of money in the area, that's for sure, I think that would be a lot better than going back to Gaza, which has had just decades and decades of death.
Where would those pieces of land?
So I want to point something out here quickly. It talks about why would they want to be in Gaza? Decades and decades of death. They've had decades and decades of death. I like this is just it's crazy, the Orwellian dystopian way that they warp reality, or that they are detached themselves from reality. Decades and decades of death by who? There's been plagues. They've been smote by God. Why is there decades and decades of death? Because Israel has been bombing them in an open air concentration camp. We watched, and he watched, and Biden watched for a year. Holocaust. They watched Holocaust for a year. They knew it was happening. They did nothing to stop it. They loved it. They salivated at it because they're settlers. And he's here saying blasé, decades and decades of death. They should just leave. Because you're murdering them. The United States and its thug, Israel, is murdering them. But that's just washed away. And another point I want to make, 2 points here. The journalists, the media is just complicit with this. Not only do they not question him when he says decades and decades of death, he's like, well, no one says anything about, well, what about Israel killing them? What about actually implementing a proper ceasefire? What about pursuing the two-state solution? None of that. They don't ask any of those questions. They just have this liberal shock. You're saying we're gonna ethnically cleanse instead of just doing it and hiding behind international law speak? You shouldn't just say it. There's foreign reporters here too. Yeah, like you could just say that to us and we'll wash it away. But there's an Al Jazeera guy. There's a maybe not RT guy, but like, come on, shh, no. Not with these guys here. No, they don't push back at all. They just accept what he's saying, that we're going to ethnically cleanse Gaza. It's horrific.
Well, they
Those
could
Arab
be in
countries
Jordan,
don't want
and they
to.
could be in Egypt, and they could be in other places. You could have more than two, more than one, but you could have more than two, and you'd have people living in a place that could be very beautiful and safe and nice. Gaza's been a disaster for decades.
Would the U.S. pay for that?
I don't
contribute?
think the
United States
UN would
contribute?
pay, but I think there's plenty of people that would in the area. They have a lot of money. They certainly have a lot of money. Some of the countries over there, they'd like to see it. I know that Saudi Arabia wants to see peace. I can see that. And many of the countries there, as far as I'm concerned, they all want peace. I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think Iran would like to see peace too. They've had enough. Don't you think they've had enough?
But the leaders of Egypt and Jordan have said bluntly they have no interest in doing this.
Well, they may have said that, but a lot of people said things to me. They said they wouldn't take anybody back in Venezuela, and right now they're flying them right back into Venezuela.
Now, again, I do want to point out, going back to what I was saying, the possibility of this happening. I think it is pretty possible. That being said, I don't think Hamas is going to just, in the Palestinian Liberation Front generally, is going to just lay down and let it happen. But I do think also there is another option here, that this is, again, a big PR stunt to look good for Netanyahu, because we know he also had a recent sit down with Trump. So it makes it look good for Netanyahu and his domestic audiences, helps Netanyahu whitewash what he's been talking about to American audiences. It's also a big fuck you to the UN, the ICC, the ICJ, sitting down with the president, flying over how many countries' airspace, despite him being a wanted war criminal, wanted by international courts for crimes against humanity. And it could also be a part of a PR operation to pave the way for more action down the line in Gaza. Another thing it could be, there's a lot here. It's too soon to tell, guys, but it's just so egregious I want to talk about it. Another thing it can be is we know that Israeli militarism and occupation is on the upwards ramp right now in the West Bank. And we saw media attention slow internationally, not so much domestically, slowly being like, whoa, what's going on here in West Bank? Right? Whoa, okay, we're supposed to be having the ceasefire in Gaza, right? Now we suddenly have this going on in the West, the media's starting to kind of look into this. And then suddenly we have this crazy comment about Gaza during a ceasefire, during talks about making a deal for the quote-unquote future of Gaza. Suddenly we have this outrageous thing going on. Could be a thing to steer the attention from the West Bank back to Gaza, where things are on the cool right now. Whoa, headlines, ethnic cleansing, Riviera of Middle East. Holy shit, Trump. Oh my God, he says crazy shit. While they are the Palestinian Authority and the Israelis themselves and the settler organizations there are on a rampage and are looking at turning West Bank potentially into what we saw in Gaza. So these are some other options for our consideration, right?
A lot of people, and they're doing the right thing in Venezuela. The Panama Canal is an active discussion right now. They said things about that. And virtually everything that's been said has been incorrectly stated based on the result.
Wouldn't that amount to forcibly displacing those people from Gaza?
I don't think so. I think if they had the opportunity, they'd love it. If they had an alternative to Gaza, they have no alternative right now. I mean, they're there because they have no alternative. What do they have? It is a big pile of rubble right now. I mean, have you seen the pictures of it? Have you been there? It's terrible to live. Who can live like that? And very dangerous. There's shooting all over the place. There's bombs.
So something this section here, he talks about it's a pile of rubble. It's dangerous. He's obviously putting a cloak of humanitarianism over top of what he's trying to do, which is turn Gaza into one of his real estate deals, right? Because we know, like I said, his son is involved in real estate dealings in Israel and has talked openly on national broadcast television about wanting to develop beachfront property in Gaza. So this is one aspect of that. And along with that humanitarian aid narrative, this really reminds me of even the building of the French Riviera. We're going to turn it into something great, right? It's like the Israeli statement of their slogan of, we made the desert, we came and we made the desert bloom, right? It reminds me of the white man's burden, which all of settler colonialism is built on, right? It's the prime directive that settler colonialism uses to humanize and justify its genocide of indigenous people and expropriation of land, right? And we heard this in other comments, again, more recently, I believe, from Jared Kushner and others, and talking about what a shame that it's just they used it for all these bombs and these killings, and they can't get it together. We'll come in and we'll turn it into a paradise and a place to gamble and to eat. We'll civilize it. Same thing they said about the natives in the Americas, in Australia, in New Zealand, in South Africa. Well, these dirty, filthy, brown animals can't handle this responsibility of land. So we'll come in, we'll have to kill a few that are uppity, and we'll take it over and make it better. And then once we've done that, the browns and blacks will be just so overjoyed. Remember our last episode talking about Elon Musk's father, Joshua Haldeman. The darkies like it. They like serving. They hand us our little drinks and stuff, and they always have a smile. This is what this is. It's the same stuff, right? The white man's burden, right?
Bombing all over the place on both sides. I would think if they had an option of moving to either in a large group or various smaller groups and take care of the close to 2 million people, I would think that they would be thrilled to do it. They have no, when you say about the Gaza Strip, they don't have an option.
To be clear, you're saying they'd be thrilled.
It's very dangerous.
They'd be thrilled to leave Gaza.
Oh, I think they'd love to leave Gaza if they had an option. Right now, they don't have an option. What are they going to do? They have to go back to Gaza. But what is Gaza? There's practically not a building standing. And they're very dangerous. Those buildings are shifting and they're falling down.
Anyway, guys, that's about it for that. But yeah, just again, turning it into rubble. No explanation. It's just magically like it was an act of God. Because the Palestinians are dirty heathens. So God the Israeli God punished. You know, it's just horrific. This is the way that the crimes, another aspect of this, again, the media not saying shit, not challenging any of it. This is how settler colonialism, this is how empire writes its crimes out of history. They do it day by day, word by word, interview by interview, textbook by textbook, documentary by documentary. They write out the crimes. The most horrific crimes imaginable. They write them out of history. Most people don't know about them. Let's talk about the Belgians in the Congo. Let's talk about the Germans in Namibia. Let's talk about the Americans and the genocide in the Americas. Let's talk about Gaza. On and on. I mean, the crimes, you cannot fathom them. I cannot describe them to you. Mass rape, mass breeding of slaves in factories, cutting off the hands of people because they couldn't produce enough rubber or chocolate in a single day. And horrors beyond anything you've seen in any horror movie or nightmare. Worse than any depiction of hell painted, drawn, or filmed anywhere in human culture. That is what the U.S. empire, the European empire, the Western empire has done in the name of colonialism and settler colonialism. And then they wash it away. And what they can't wash away, the liberal class comes in and gives it a pretty puff piece and said, those times are gone now. Look how much better we've gotten. This is settler colonialism, guys. I want to show you this, guys. Some of you have already probably seen this. This is Palestinians returning to Gaza, returning to the north of Gaza, despite everything. Look at the numbers. Let's just watch
This video, this is drone footage today showing tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians walking back to Gaza City. Now, this is after Hamas agreed to release 3 Israeli hostages later this week, prompting Israel to pull its forces from a key portion of that area. Under the ceasefire agreement, people from northern Gaza were supposed to return home over the weekend, but that was delayed after Israel accused Hamas of breaking the deal by not releasing 3 female hostages as planned. Around 650,000 people were displaced from northern Gaza during the war, which started after Hamas attacked southern Israel on October 7th, 2023.
Yeah, pretty quick there, but inspiring stuff, guys. Now, I mean, I don't even want to lecture on this too much, but imagine, those aren't just like soldiers and warriors. Those are everyday people going back to what remains of their homes, which is a parking lot, because they refuse to leave the land. And now many would leave, I think, for better opportunities and safety after all the horror and trauma they've experienced this last year, if that were an option. But I still think the majority, and I think most Palestinians would say, I would rather starve on this block of exploded concrete and rebarbed steel than leave. Now let's contrast this with this. Excuse me, guys. This is back somewhat shortly after October 7th. I wish I had a timestamp. I don't. But this is Israelis fleeing after October 7th. Okay. And I want to point out, look at the skin color of these people. But just watch this. First, like I said, how many of those faces were brown or Arab? I think I saw one brown-skinned person. Why? Because they're not from Palestine. They're from Europe. Furthermore, if Israel's their home, where are they fleeing to? Well, they're fleeing to France, they're fleeing to the United States, they're fleeing to Britain, they're fleeing to Germany, and they're fleeing to Europe, where they're from, where they have passports to, where many of them still have dual citizenship to. Yeah. I want you to compare that image you just saw with the image
This video, this is drone footage to
here of Palestinians going back to their homes despite there being nothing left. This is the difference between settlers and indigenous people. This is the difference between when a place is your home and when a place is a piece of land that you've seized for your own enrichment and for your little fucking vacation utopian experiment. Whose land is that? You tell me. We're almost done here, guys. But the last thing I wanted to show you, going on with this contrast between the indigenous spirit and the settler colonial spirit, and harkening back to a little bit earlier in the discussion when I talked about the horrors that colonialists, settler colonialists, are willing to inflict on indigenous people. I have this short little clip here. We'll just run this for you quick. It says, Israel's prime minister gave this golden pager to President Trump in an apparent celebration of attacks in Lebanon that killed dozens of people. Children were among the victims when Israel planted explosives in devices. This is back, used by the armed group Hezbollah. This is back when Israel was trying to invade Lebanon. Hundreds of civilians were injured in the attacks. There you have some footage, which were approved by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Experts told Al Jazeera the attacks were very likely to breach international law. You can see them doing it in markets, public places with innocent people around. Israel's prime minister gave... Okay, yeah, sorry, it's repeating. But yes, why I have this up. He gifted Trump a golden pager, which was used to inflict a war crime on innocent people in Lebanon, where they made pagers blow up in people's pockets. And you're saying, what's that embedded in? That is a tree. A polished slice of tree, an olive tree, that was cut down by the Israelis. The olive tree is a symbol of Palestinian culture and of Palestinian determination. It is a symbol of Palestinian culture and determination because Palestinians have olive trees that are hundreds of years old. I think maybe even thousands. They have olive trees that have been there since the Crusades. And it is a very dear and cherished and powerful symbol to the Palestinians. So what did he give? What did Netanyahu give Trump? A golden pager, which was used to murder innocent people with bombs, like a letter bomb. Embossed, attached to an olive tree. The sickness in a mind to not only produce something like that as a symbol of pride, but to give to another leader who is in bed with these crimes. This is the mind of settler colonialism. This is the mind of Western Empire. It is damned to hell. It is decadent and depraved beyond any comprehension that a normal working class person can have. This is racism. This is slavery. This is genocide. This is horror embellished in a single item. This item is demonic. And this is what these leaders of settler colonialism of the Western Empire are giving to each other. But anyway, guys, that's all I have for you. Try to keep it a little bit short today. As always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to comment on the video. Appreciate all of your guys' support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can support my independent media work on Patreon at patreon.com/entitledmillennials. You can sign up there for $1 a month. You won't even miss it. One-time donations through PayPal are greatly appreciated. You can give those through paypal.me/entitledmillennials. And I could really use the extra cash right now, so anything you can give, greatly, greatly appreciated. As always, guys, I love talking these issues with you. I love hanging out with you. And I look forward to hanging out with you all again real soon. Bye for now.
I wanna start a revolution.